Today, I've got someone on the show I've known for about 4 years. During that time, I've watched him evolve right alongside the industry. A lot of people know him as Solar Steve, but today he's Storage Steve, and there's a reason for that. He's the founder of Solari Storage, and while much of the industry is still trying to figure out how batteries fit into the traditional solar model, Steve and his team have gone all in on storage first and storage only sales here in California. They've been pioneering the sales process, figuring out what homeowners actually care about, and positioning themselves for what could be the next massive shift in energy storage. So, today we're going to talk about why he's made the pivot, what's happening to California's grid, why storage could become bigger than solar, and whether the solar storage salesperson is about to become obsolete. Storage Steve, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Dude, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm super honored to be here. Um, it's my
Dude,
second podcast ever.
I'm stoked. What was your first?
Danny Pessy.
Hey, shout out to Danny Pessy. That's awesome. We got to have him on the show at some point here.
Yeah, dude, he's an OG, man. He's a good friend, good mentor.
Well, you're taking some time out of your busy day. I know we were both running around this morning trying to manage our business, and you're doing it all from where at now?
So from the beach, that's the flavor of 2026 and 2027 is doing remote storage and solar from the beach. And so back there is the beach. So
Yeah,
makes
I've
it
been
easy.
keeping up on your Instagram, Storage Steve, and you've been posting every day about making 1.2 million in revenue from your storage only company by the beach. And so, what day are we on now?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm past day 30, I believe. I've been posting every day. Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep at it. I mean, yeah, we've got some good views out of it, and I'm really just trying to love the process of posting, not like getting too attached to the outcome and all that. But yeah, man, it's been fun. It's kind of fun doing content and just like putting it all together and shooting stuff from the beach. And I just figured I live here, so that was kind of I think that's what people want to see. So, it's like that's
Yeah.
the lifestyle. It's actually what I live. So here I am doing it.
Dude, I'm loving the stories. I love the one that you posted. I think it was just yesterday on the bike, going no hands on the bike on the beach. I was like, that's fun, man. I love the vibes. Yeah,
Yeah.
keep it up. I know you were just posting. You said a funny one, shooting that before we hopped on, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna record some stuff of us doing this podcast. You can always do content of the content. And so I normally this is not my background normally. I'm actually like by the door, so you'll see that in the video of like where it was, and then yeah, so I do have a view of this from my room, but normally it's not behind me. So we like carted my stuff out here, and
I appreciate
just
you
for
being
the.
flexible so we can get a good internet connection here for the viewers. I know
Yeah,
a lot of
it was
us.
hard outside for first.
It was, yeah, absolutely. I don't want to jinx it, right? But no, we just want to make sure that we can capture really what you're doing, which is kind of paving the way for the rest of our industry. I mean, you did a whole identity and rebrand change to Storage Steve. Why?
Yeah, so I've been doing solar for 7 years. You've known me for four out of those seven, going on eight here. And so I started in Northern California. I got into door to door after I graduated from college. I don't know, I think a good amount of people come from like the Utah, former LDS space, like with door to door. And I wasn't that. I was just really excited to be helping the environment. And so I had a, ex-girlfriend in college that was like a hippie, hippie-ish. Like we were very like passionate about the environment. And so my parents got solar in 2008. And so I was like, well, someone sold them that. So why can't I? And so when I graduated from UC Davis, I was like, dude, I want to help the environment. So um, we ended up breaking up, me and that girl. She wanted to go do some crazy, I don't know, just a lot more like live in an eco hut kind of thing. But I said, hey, I'll sell solar and drive a Tesla, and and that's been me, and that's what I've done for the last 7 years. And
And
so
you've even upgraded to a Rivian, I think, right?
Yes, now I have a Rivian. I'm very blessed, you know. It's a
Yeah.
great car and it's 100%, you know, electric.
It is
So
such a cool
keeps with the theme.
vehicle. It's such a cool vehicle. It's a beautiful, beautiful vehicle. So you're living the life. I just really want
Yeah.
to get into some real value. We've got typically around 60 or so listeners on the podcast that we're just getting going, but we're really trying to highlight what's happening here on the ground floor, kind of the next wave in residential energy. Obviously, just to paint a picture for our audience, we've basically brought California's grid to about 24% from solar now here in 2026.
51% at least on a couple of days this year.
On a couple of days, even a couple of moments, like during the day, then there's spikes and things on the production of solar in like early April, and early May, even when usage is low. I think we go totally renewable for moments, right? But as we know, solar has its issues. It's created a massive duck curve, is what it's called in the industry, where basically solar causes the problem. I always say, I don't want to get political on it, but people who are aware of this know that solar actually causes the problem, whereas batteries are the solution. And so, with that said, storage, Steve, do you think batteries are now the primary and solar is becoming an add on? Or what are your thoughts on what you've seen shift in the past few years in California?
Yeah, so I think to answer your question before too, I branded myself as Solar Steve about 4 years ago. Like when you met me, I was kind of in the middle of that. And I just thought it was funny. And one of my coworkers was like, "That's catchy. You should definitely run with that." And I did. So the Rivian, the green, go green, you know, Rivian, it has Solar Steve on it, is the license plate. So if you see that around people, that's me. But I realized over the past year that storage is definitely the future. With the tax credits going away in 2027, things are going to get a lot different. And so we definitely need to change where we're at. And storage is going to be the solution because of that duck curve about what you're talking about. And with tax credits, they're going away for solar if you lease it with commercial by 2027. But if you do it for batteries, it's good until 2032. The Inflation Reduction Act didn't change that. So we can still, you know, get compensated well and, you know, bring those tax credits to make it cheaper for the homeowner. But we're not able to do that for as long with solar anymore. And so the reason that like the Republicans on the left, on the right, that they kept that is because they also see the value in storage capability, whether it's coming from renewables or somewhere else. And so rather than fight the predominant theme right now of, getting rid of tax credits and IRA, and that setup, it's better just to follow what the government trend is. And so storage is the solution for a lot of problems. We're going to see way more power outages over the next 5 years because of AI data centers and because of EVs. And just solar is also overloading it. And so storage batteries solve a huge, huge problem as far as the duck curve goes and AI power outages. And so I think it's just it feels like what solar was back in like 2013 is what batteries are now, and we still have a long runway to go. It's still a very young industry, and so I feel like there's like this concept of like blue and red ocean. And so like a red ocean is like where you're competing and it's at the end of the market, and then there's a couple of big competitors and they're kind of gobbling up and fighting each other and fighting for the same customer. That's what I feel like solar has been like over the last couple of years, especially in California with the NEM 3 change, which is where I'm at. And so storage became the solution, just a matter of fact. You were forced to put batteries on after a couple of years ago. And so I feel like this transition is very, very easy because it's a blue ocean. You're going back to a market where there's not many competitors and there's not many people doing retrofits of just battery only. There's starting to be more because people have talked about it, and I'm starting to see competitors. But it feels much newer and much different, and that's exciting. And I feel like in solar, there's, I've heard Michael O'Donnell on your podcast talk about solar 1.0 and then 2.0, and now it's 3.0. I think 3.0 is batteries, it's storage. And so you can sell that as a standalone product, and they're doing that in some markets, or you can add it to retrofit for an old system. And so there's 2.3 million customers that have solar in California, and only I think 200,000 have batteries right now. So
Yeah.
that's a massive amount of people that you can go and advertise to that already saw the value in solar, that are going to eventually see the value in batteries. And then the other thing is too is there's another wave coming of the people that started doing solar in 2006. They are going to be kicked off NEM this year, off their NEM 1 status, because they have a 20-year contract agreement. And 2007, 2008, that's like kind of when solar started to become a thing in California. And then you go up to like 2013 and you have a big spike, and there's a big curve of people that, the early adopter curve. And so that's coming where they're going to be kicked off NEM 1 and or NEM 2, and they're going to be very upset and very shocked when they look at their bill again. And to fix that, they're going to have to do storage. And so if we're placed right now, that's why I decided to become Storage Steve, is if I pivot now, then we'll be at the beginning of this new wave, and we can continue to do, I can continue to sell renewables, which is my dream. I want to do this forever. And I know
Yeah.
you do too. I know that's why we're
Yes.
pretty close.
Yeah.
We're aligned on that.
We're very aligned.
So that's
That was a great context for the audience. I think you said that really eloquently, and the timing is everything, as we know. And I agree that I think you, like you said, 2013. This is solar in 2013. That's exactly the right year. I think you're very accurate on that number there. And you kind of painted some of the picture of, kind of where solar is at over this 20-year period with these contracts. All the contracts that we're signing people up for today in California, now they change yearly, and they only go for a 9-year period, and they have a dramatic step down
interesting.
on, yeah, and they have a
Yeah.
dramatic step down on the value each year that you can sell back electricity. Like, I have clients that I've been analyzing on the Tesla batteries from 2024 PTO, right around when the batteries came out, and watching how here in 2026 their sell back rate during the peak times right now in August are actually lower than the peak times of my NEM 2025 and my NEM 2026 because of that step down. So there's a lot of nuances now in selling storage, and you've mastered a ton of them, Steve. One of the things that you've really opened my eyes to is the Department of Energy 2025 report that came out in July about the, I won't steal your thunder. Tell us about that, report by the Department of Energy.
Oh yeah. So, yeah, I shared this with you, and I think you've looked it up since, so that's great. I don't actually have a copy. One of the owners of the installers, I can get it from him. I believe it's a 72-page report, and it came out last July, 2025. And it was the DOE's Trump's administration put this out there, and they said, hey, right now the average home in America gets 8 hours of power outages a year, nationwide. And they said, okay, we predict that this is going to go up immensely. And so, it was a crazy number. So like, I don't know, what's a crazy number to you, Jonathan? Like, I mean, I think you already know
Yeah,
the answer, but
I mean,
like
for
20
me as
hours a
a
year,
as
50,
yeah, having a home here in Southern California, I mean, if we have more than, I mean, right now it's probably like 8 to 10, I would say, but if we were to have, I don't know, 40 or 50 hours a year, I would be upset if I didn't have the Teslas that I have mounted to the side of my house, right? But I'm in an area that's a high risk fire zone, so on my Ring and neighborhood notifications, I think since I've been here in this house for only about 3.5 months now, I've seen at least 6 power outages in this area, and it's kind of got me back
mm,
out on the doors a couple times, right? Because I've been like, hey, this is easy money, right? Literally, people are like, oh, how do I do this? And you got all these people saying, oh, just go straight to Tesla, don't go to the middleman, blah, 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 and that. So I'm already kind of seeing how the market's reacting. What's going to stop people in the future from just going to a digital checkout and saying, this battery makes so much sense? Like, why buy it from a salesperson?
yeah. So, um, Yeah, so basically the report ended up saying that it's going to be 800 hours a year by 2030. And then what was crazy is the Department of Energy took down the report. They like removed it from the website. And so you've already seen like, 20 hours a year, so it's like not unreasonable for you. But some people that's not believable. But why would they buy it from us? I think the reason that they should buy it from us is because we can size it appropriately. And just in general, this sale is an artisan type of sale. Like, yes, you can. There will be some people that do the checkout and they research their own stuff and they want the bare bottom price. And I've seen some of those people already. But most people they don't. A lot of people, maybe not most, but a lot of people they don't understand and they need to be led through a process and they need to know that we have the expertise, me and you, on how many batteries are necessary, what their bill is going to look like in 9 years with this drop down effect that most people don't really understand, um, and like what their NEM status is and what that even means. And so they need expertise, and so that's why they're going to come to us, is because we're going to contour a setup for what they need. Some people just need one battery. Some people need three or four. Some people, there's a huge rebate that they're unaware of in their area and that we can file for them. And some people, they don't know what financing options are out there. And so it's just kind of like going to a car dealership. Some people are going to know what they want and they're going to shop around and, try to get the best deal and really research it. But a lot of people, they just want a car and they want it to work, and they don't need to know all the ins and outs of it. And so a lot of people just are going to want a battery and they're going to want to know how it works, or that it's going to work. Um, and that's what we're here for. That's our job, is to
Yeah,
explain that.
I love that. That's exactly how I see it as well. And that's, the alignment's obviously there. I've been ahead of the curve on the batteries for sure for years. I started selling batteries on about 80% of my jobs in 2020 when COVID hit. And I just like, this makes sense. We didn't make any extra money at the time I was a Sunrun, and we didn't even make any extra money. Everybody's like, why are you selling batteries? Like, there's no benefit. It just costs money. And I'm like, it doesn't cost money. It adds a tremendous amount of value. And so the value of the batteries is there. And I was even thinking as we were speaking there, I'm sure this exists. I'll have to ask ChatGPT or go in and build a little piece of software if it's not out there to show what is the energy value of selling back on that step down, starting at, whatever year you get into it, and then what it steps down by and kind of the value of that energy, just to start showing people the value. And that's one of the things that you've done really well, Steve, is on your presentation, you've broken down, the Department of Energy and the power outages and how this works. But on top of that, you've looked for a unique value proposition where you can get incentives, right? What we call incentive stacking in our industry. You've, really pulled those pieces together and found, a partner and a process and a way to do this ahead of the big companies, ahead of, the Sunruns and the other companies that are out there pushing, battery only now, right now, as we see emerging into August 2026. So obviously the biggest players see it, the smallest players still, brand themselves as solar people. But really, maybe share with the audience who are here selling storage or want to sell more storage, like how are you positioning that conversation to your homeowners? Like break that down.
Yeah. So some people they just care about their true up bill and they just want to see savings. So that's one angle. If they have anywhere from $100 to $1,000 and it's on the peak time, that duck curve from 4 to 9 p.m., those demand charges where they charge them 2 to 3 times more, so it could be up to 69 cents. Um, then if you pull from the battery during that time and you fill it up in the morning, you are arbitraging it. You're either selling it to Edison and making some money, and if you do a Tesla battery, it's up to $2 a kilowatt, guaranteed, for a virtual power plant event. Or you can sell it back to them at that peak amount, which is 69 cents or 70 something cents, um, or you can keep it. And so that would get rid of their $1 to $1,000 bill. So that's how one way you can pitch it, is you're saying, hey, you may have been approached by someone before and talked about adding panels and that was going to put you on NEM 3 and it just wasn't really a good fit. And so you say a lot of these solar companies, they try to add panels to your solar system. We're one of the few in California that just does battery only. A lot of people, a lot of these kids, they come from out of state and they come knock on doors for the summer, and they're trying to push panels on you because that's where they make their margin. But it would actually put you in a worse position. You don't necessarily need that. And so I'm not here to push panels on you. In fact, I'm here to see if you can do anything at all for you. But most of what my customers are seeing is if you're in the $1 to $1,200 range, you probably just need a battery. And so let's take a look at your bill and kind of go through that together. Um,
I
so
love
that's
that.
that's how I pitch the true up, yeah, setup.
That was it was on point. That's exactly right. And I'm curious, as a learner myself, right? I've not done battery only yet, and I've been watching you, and that's why I said, hey, I want you to come in and share the secret sauce. Like, how are you doing it? And I've learned a lot just in the past month of non-export settings and how it configures with the original NEM and it doesn't affect that, and how to add even additional panels to those batteries potentially. But really, the battery only, tell us about that. Like, have do you get those clients? Like, I know I have a few that have told me over the years, I hate solar, I would never put it on my roof, but can I just get batteries only on my house? Have you done one of those yet?
I have not done it yet, but we have been thinking about doing that, especially in San Diego. So I run Facebook ads. I've had people reach out to me, and so there's a forward-thinking guy in Edison territory, and he was thinking about the arbitrage effect because if you're pulling from the off-peak times, it's about like 20 cents, for the care customer to like 25 cents off peak.
Yep.
And then on peak, it's 30, to 40 cents. It's in that range. So you could, make the difference. It's not enough savings yet, and the batteries are still a little too pricey in the way that they're doing it that it could save. But
Right.
you can do it in San Diego, SDG&E. So these discrepancies, I think, are going to get more and more um,
Battery
I don't know,
favored.
potent, like battery
Battery favor
favored. Yeah, like
battery favored. Yeah.
battery favored because they're so needy for power from 4 to 9, and with the AI data centers, EVs, and more solar, they need the storage, and so they're gonna make it so that their people are incentivized to put the batteries even more on their old system. So I think those peak times will get worse and worse.
Yep.
And so it's already happening in San Diego. SDG&E, you can pull from the grid for 12 cents a kilowatt after midnight, and then on the EV5 rate plan, and then you can sell it back during the peak times at 72 cents or use it at 72-cent times.
Right.
So for those people, if they just did battery only, they would be able to save about 100 to 150 bucks a month, just by doing battery only.
And I think
Um,
what we're seeing
the
is that's sorry to interject. I think that's what we're seeing,
That's
right? Is
okay.
that every utility is a little bit different. And I think certain ones are more favorable, like you're saying, based upon the buy and sell. I mean, that's a huge delta, right? Between that 12 cents and all the way up to what'd you say it was at the peak?
72, I believe, for SDG&E.
72. Yeah, and Edison, it's actually, to go back and kind of add more transparency on that, is it's actually, like you said, 20 to 25 cents you're, using during the off peak. That's correct. In certain rate plans, like the ones that people are on now, regular time of use, those peak times go up to 73 cents, about similar to San Diego. So yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
arbitrage. Yeah, arbitrage is definitely the way, I think, for sure. And people, who don't know how that works, you kind of broke it down pretty well. So we're basically just to the customer standpoint. Let's take it there for a second. So that's some of the sales side, but from a customer standpoint, people are going to get more education. I know I'm starting to put together some content on the Tesla battery app, and how to use those settings, and how it works during VPP times. Like, even when you were talking right now, I'm like, wait a second, we can literally switch the amount of backup reserve on the arbitrage or on VPPs, or we can switch it on the general settings. I'm like, you know what? Now that I understand that, even just now at a deeper layer, like there's an argument there if you're just trying to maximize ROI, where in those VPP times you don't keep 20% for backup reserve like it's already defaulted to. Max that thing out. Say we're going to discharge the entire battery, down to 5% or whatever, right? Get that down even lower to maximize that $2 a kilowatt hour sell back rate in the utility.
Yeah.
So That's a great point. Now clients get more savvy by the day with AI, right? They're, oh, let me research this, let me do that, let me right. And like you said, some people are going to be that way. Some people are just wanting somebody they can trust. It's a big decision to pay, $20,000, $30,000 to, mount rare earth minerals to the side of your establishment. Now, it's kind of a strange sale when you think about it, because it's like we're putting 280 pounds or so of capacity per battery, and we're doing two of those. We're putting over 500 pounds worth of storage capacity into that. And I think the people who really see the bigger picture, I don't want to go too off into the weeds here unless you want to nerd out, but I was talking with my wife just last night, and she was like, "What are you even talking about?" I'm like, "The currency of the future, I think, is going to be backed. Our monetary system is going to be backed by some sort of energy type backed currency." And I think that storage is being converted into data. We saw Sunrun come out with these little mini, they kind of hinted at these mini data centers that are decentralized that they're selling along with their products. And we're getting to, I think, this merging point. This is my little, futuristic side. It's like, I think we're getting to this merging point where compute and energy are becoming interchangeable. It's the same exact thing, right? The limitation to AI is energy, point blank. That's end of story. And so as we move into this new age, some of the visionaries that I listen to are saying things like, yeah, we're going to basically evolve towards everything is an energy backed, it's tied to tokens or something that's kind of tying the value of a kilowatt, to a monetary, value. And so I think that's really where things are with storage. I always tell people who, are, really smart, these engineer types who like to go around, oh, I think nuclear, da 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 da. Da. I'm like, the problem is not generation. Nuclear is a great form of generation. I'm not opposed to that. The problem is storage. The problem is in the future is not going to be how much raw power can we generate. It's when can we generate it, and then here's the bigger one: when can we deploy it, right? Deployment and timing of energy, for people who understand anything about engineering, know that's everything about how energy is distributed. And so we're selling distributed energy systems to people. That's what we're selling, right? Sunrun positioned themselves as the America's leading storage company about 3 years ago. They already knew that this is what things were moving towards, and they want to
Hmm.
own that storage. So we're seeing this kind of divide. We're seeing one path is homeowners will have the option to let a big corporation kind of start to control how storage is used and how they can deploy that and take advantage of this economy that's building underneath this infrastructure. Or people who say, you know what, this might sound crazy, but I see that this makes sense to spend $30,000 to own a piece of control over how that battery is used over the next 10, 15, 20 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's really cool. I mean, I think it's so fascinating to see what's happened over the last like 12 to 24 months in this space. And you're completely right. Obviously, we have the Sunruns, they're the largest, you know. But I think there's going to be a lot of room for competitors, especially because it's new. And so, like, if you go to Texas, there's a company called Base Power out there, and they sell it for a very cheap price point, and then they tie in into having their own utility rate plan because it's a decentralized grid. There's other battery types coming out that aren't just Tesla, even though that's primarily what I sell right now. And there's companies that are starting to talk about building their own battery, giving a residual to sales reps for 20 years, like an insurance plan, and just a lot more tech coming out. And so I think there's going to be a lot of room for a lot of players in this because you're right. Like, nuclear is not going to be the solution. I mean, it is. It's part of the solution, but it's a conglomerate of all these different things. And in California, we're not making any more nuclear power plants, and everyone kind of agrees on that. In fact, we're barely keeping one on. We extended the term for Moss Landing up in NorCal, and that's the
Right.
only nuclear plant we have in California.
Isn't that the Diablo Canyon, or is that one
Yeah,
decommissioned yet? Or
Diablo Canyon. Excuse me. Yeah, so
yeah,
I think they extended it. It's for another 5 or 10 years that they extended the plan, or
right.
the PPA with it. So but that's it. That's all we have, and that's on the coast. It's a dangerous setup in case there's a tsunami. Like, there's just a lot of problems, and so I can see those like small nuclear reactors, like companies like Oklo, which I've invested in personally, and stuff like that coming out. And I think that's going to be a part of it. But you're right, we still need storage. And so the Republicans saw that too, even though they're not very renewable friendly. And that's why they kept the tax credits
Right.
for storage. And so for me personally, what I think of is I look at taxes as a plan by the government to incentivize you to do the things that they want you to do that they think are going to be helpful for the economy, for the people, and for the government. And
Right.
so, if you buy a house, like you get a bunch of write-offs and depreciations. If you're buying a new car, that's stimulating the economy, and it's above 6,000 pounds, it's a work truck. You can do write-offs like that. And for a long time, there was solar tax credits, and I don't necessarily agree with the way that they did it now, but they've gotten rid of that, and it's solar is still, if you look at the data, like solar is still being mass adopted, faster and faster every year. We're still growing on solar, even without tax credits, but storage they kept it. So if the Republicans who are not very renewably favored, or very renewably conscious, they still see the value in storage, and there's still credits until 2032. I'm following that guideline because that to me makes the most sense. It's like, okay, well then I also have like job security in the amount that I know I'm gonna the income that's going to be generated in the savings that I'm giving to the customer for the next 6 years. But also it's like there's a big reason that they wouldn't cut it out of the tax code, and we can postulate on those as much as we want, but no matter what, that's set in stone. And in fact, it'll only get better if we get another Democrat in charge,
Right.
which I
Right.
don't know, politics aside, but I'm all about renewables. That's how I vote, and so I think that having someone that would bring it back would be great, but no matter
Right.
what, storage is set until 2032,
I couldn't agree
for good
more, and
reason.
I get so passionate as well about that because there is so many like emotions. I feel like solar in California, it's become like a cultural meme. I mean, it was on Despicable Me 4, I believe, where there was like Gru, the evil villain, is like, "Oh, I sell solar," with this little funny voice or whatever. It's like it's a joke, right? And people, I mean, across the country are getting knocked by all the people who fled out of California 3 years ago because they couldn't see the future of the batteries, and they didn't, and it just the whole market just collapsed like a house of cards, and it's still collapsing 3 years later. And
Yeah.
it's because of this dying off, like Mike O'Donnell says, of solar 1, solar 2, and now we're in solar 3.0, which is the battery first value. And the way that we sell it's very different, and that's why I'm a student here. So what do you think is harder about selling storage?
Um, I think what's harder is it's not necessarily a savings. It's more like for the door-to-door people, it's more like an alarm sale, I would say, where you're like adding value and you're adding a bill to their setup. And so you got to really build the pain and the picture of like what we've been talking about here of where things are going, and the amount of outages that are coming, and the arbitrage effect and things like that. So you got to be a little bit more of a nuanced salesperson. Like you need to know how to build value and not just be like, well, it's $200 and this is 150. Why wouldn't you sign up? It's like that was selling based on savings. And so I think I'm kind of glad we got rid of that because it got rid of a lot of the bad actors in the solar industry that were just there for the gold rush of to kind of put it that way, that term.
Right.
And so I batteries, it's building value on it, but it still does sell itself because you get a lot of people that are in areas that have been affected, just like your neighborhood. And
Right.
they're like 6 outages a year. Like, dude, I can't handle that. Like, I don't want to deal with that. And they do see the AI data centers coming, and they do understand that stuff. And so those are easier people to talk to. But yeah, I would say just having to build the value of the battery first, and then still selling them on paying more per month for something rather than necessarily saving. Because even if they have a true up bill, they still probably add about $50 a month, 50 to $100 a month, to their bill by putting storage on.
50 to 100 bucks a month is definitely not bad. And I think back to the original premise of this is 2013 solar. that was actually the year I started into Go Green, energy efficiency, and got certified as a building performance analyst with the Building Performance Institute, and went and started testing homes for efficiency and energy loss and heat gain, heat transfer, just basic physics, and did that. And we did solar at that time, but I got into the actual consulting piece at the beginning of 2014 and started my career in in-home sales. And at that point in time, selling solar was a much more boutique, artisanal, like you said earlier with batteries. It's got this more nuanced, sale where you're having to actually demonstrate value and tell a better story to sell it. And back then, we were doing about 1 in 15 of our retrofit jobs had solar as an add-on because the economics were very different. This was back when solar, I think, was still like $8 or so a watt to buy it. It was just coming down off the 10, years of $10 a watt. I think it was around 8.
Wow.
But there was
Yeah.
incentives, there was state incentives, all these things to kind of like get it moving. And that's what we're seeing in California here is that we have federal, state, VPPs, energy demand response, all these different stacked incentives where it is like that, but you have to kind of build the value of saying, hey, this is a similar type of investment of the past, $20,000-$30,000 solar system. Now we're going out and saying $20,000-$30,000 battery system. It's just a simple shift. And so with all that said, your team, Solari Storage, you've basically been pioneering that sales process. What do you think you guys are doing differently than other solar sales organizations?
Well, we're not a solar sales organization. We're a storage sales organization. That's the
There you
difference.
go.
But no, we really primarily we do the batteries first and the solar second. And I can't say everything. I mean, like if you want to come work with us, you totally can, and you have. But for the people on this podcast, like if you're interested, like you can come work with us. We are open to working
Yeah.
together, and so part of it is finding good partners. I've done a really good job over the last 7 years of vetting good partners. I know a lot of people that haven't gotten paid or went with people that like didn't know what they were doing and couldn't get the fulfillment done in time and just all sorts of F ups. And I don't have that problem. I'm very good at vetting out the installers that we use. And so there's a few in California that do battery only. And so we've partnered with them. And so I've done all that research of finding who does what best. And, I spent countless, I mean, tens, probably hundreds of hours, researching, figuring out, talking, negotiating, investigating. And so, yeah, so I would say that's a big part of it. And then the other part too is I just got a good team, like I strive to be excellent at what I do, and I try to only be excellent at a few things. And one of them is being a great salesman and a great leader. And yeah, and we just keep it small. We have a smaller team, but we're really really good at what we do. And so I only like to work with people that are kind of high level. I don't like having to bring in a bunch of new reps and kind of train them and do all that stuff. I like working with people that already know their stuff, like you and me. Um, and so then I can just chisel them to get a little bit better and and morph them into the right person. And so usually it's about like one or two people a year that I mentor that end up being really really A players, like Spartan warriors after that. So we kind of have a Spartan team. That's what I would say of just like I think it's about the 5 or 10 like heavy hitters that are working all the time. And so that's what's been successful for me is keeping it small, at least right now, and just getting out there and getting after it. And so we have on our team, I think we have about 100 installs for the year that have come through our setup so far. I think I've closed about 70 of them that have been installed. And so, yeah, and we're gonna keep going. So hopefully by the end of this year, I should have a golden door. That's the vision
That's
and that's the goal.
amazing.
So I'll
Is
let
that
you
going to be
know.
the first golden door for battery storage? Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, so it's 150. You have to have 150 installs of solar storage or both. And you can set it You can self-gen it, you can close it. So it's just 150, however you do it. I've
Amazing.
talked to yeah,
Sam
I've
Taggart, you
talked
talked to
to
him about it? Yeah.
Sam Taggart many times about it. Yeah, so we signed up for his course too. So like, it's just I've been fueling myself with all sorts of knowledge and info, and just keep doing the work. And so I think that's why we're doing so well, is because I'm really focused on storage and Storage Steve. I changed my whole moniker, to make it change my identity. So I'm all in on it, and that's why I think we've done so well.
Amazing. I'm so excited to be a part of Solari Storage. I don't, I have interviewed people from all different parts of the industry, but you're one of the few that I said, hey, I think you're on to the future of this here, and I would love to partner with you and learn from you and get mentorship from you. And so you've been very helpful, and I've hopefully can bring some new stuff to the table in terms of just how to sell it and how to keep positioning it better and better, because this is the future for sure, with no doubt. And so I'm curious, you have the best visibility, I would say, in the entire storage industry as far as I'm concerned. Really good vantage point on the sales front, what you're seeing in homes, what your teams are seeing in homes. I'm sure in that process of closing and installing 70 storage systems so far, congrats on that, by the way, that
Thank
you've
you.
come across customers that have had misconceptions. What are the biggest consumer misconceptions you're seeing in California?
Um, they think it costs like a huge amount of money. So they think it's like 30 or $40,000 for batteries. And you can price it that high, but there's a lot of room with the subsidies that you can get. So yeah, it could be a lot cheaper for them. So, and I see that it's getting cheaper and cheaper right now currently. So the biggest preconceived notion is, oh, I got to pay 30 grand out of pocket. They don't know they can do financing. And then they don't understand like how much the VPP credits will pay them back. And then what the real net cost is. And so if you factor in all of those things together, like when you're sitting down with them and you're building value, I mean, it could really cost them like $50 a month, net cost. When it's a $150 payment, but they're getting rid of their true up and things like that. And it has actually happened. We have customers from 8 months ago that have been installed and they do not have a true up. Like it is actually working for them. So, you just got to know what's on peak and off peak and how much you're actually saving them, based off that. Not over promise. It's better to under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, I
And
think
yeah,
real quick
that's
to jump in, I think we're seeing softwares come out now that are starting to be storage modeling focused, right? Where we can actually, instead of showing somebody solar, which even the current tools that we have, I feel like in our industry are not amazing at always projecting the value of solar aspect, but the battery is a whole different, it's a whole different story, and how you kind of calculate that. And so we'll save that for another podcast because there's a lot there, but that's why you want to get good mentors and good leaders, people that can help educate and break down at a really deep level like what's actually happening and how to position it in the market. And so back to kind of the sales aspect of it, we've watched obviously tons of solar companies collapse, come and go over the past just 4 years, even that we've known each other. But in my career, just seeing the devastations of it all. So, what type of solar or what type of storage company isn't going to survive, do you think, in this next transition?
um, what type of solar company is
What
or
type
isn't
of
going to survive?
like
Yeah,
storage? We'll
storage.
say a storage, yeah. Like what kind of storage
Yeah,
company? Like we're seeing storage companies start to pop up, right? Companies are starting to position
yeah.
to say storage, storage, storage. Like, what do you think is like the losing prop here? Do you have like have you picked a horse in the race yet, or is it still too early to do
hmm
that?
Um, yeah, so I mean, I'm still interviewing companies. I've worked with a few that I think will, most likely be around for the long term. So I think it's similar to solar. I think a lot of these big players that give you really, really low red lines that promise the world, they end up going bankrupt. And they promise fast installs, the lowest red lines, and they're going to grow really, really quickly. I think if any company is trying to grow too quickly, that's actually scary because there's a lot of overhead when it comes to, installation work. As a sales org, you can grow a lot quicker than they can. Um, and so, What I would say is I think it's gonna be regional players. So like people that are like in their region and they're really good at that utility company and those AHJs that they're working in. And so, if they're like based in only San Diego or they're based in only SoCal or they're based only in NorCal, and then they eventually kind of grow to the whole state, I think that's, or like a statewide player. But like even a statewide player, that is so many, I think it takes time. It takes a few years. So like if they just open up like 5 offices and they're all over the place, I'm like, ooh, that's not a good sign. So someone that's growing sustainably in even keel, um, or they have a track record in the past of of good business. Like one of the there's a company that I've worked with, and like they sold a solar company before and exited successfully out of the industry. And so like having a good track record and interviewing the founders and having a good feel for them is really important. um so I think it's a few things. It's you got to have, it's not one simple answer. It's you got to have good founders. They need to have cash on hand. They can't be the lowest possible red line unless they're a little bit bigger of a company because they have like better margins, with the battery, fulfillment. Um, and they need to, yeah, those are basically the big three things. And I mean, and just not growing too fast. I think like growing like at a sustainable clip.
Yeah.
Because right now, like, there's really only one big player, and we've seen all the other ones go bankrupt because they left their margins like this on the backside. And so I think that big player, there's definitely room for other big players. And so it remains to be seen who's that going to be. But there will be small teams that'll exist or small companies that will exist. And so I don't know, I want to find like a regional,
Yeah.
next big player.
I like
But
that
we'll see.
process. I think that's good. That's a fair. That's probably similar to the way I would assess it as well. I mean, that's the way to identify kind of who's building. It's so new. It is a bit hard to bet on a single horse in the race. It could go a lot of ways. I think people underestimate the kind of value again of the battery piece of this thing to the point where you said yes, there's compensation models that exist where literally the battery salesperson gets an insurance or a residual piece of secured income for the future. That's how fundamental this is for the future. I would say, in my opinion, it is the most important foundational piece of our economy and our future is how energy is stored and distributed. And I just wanted to slow down and say that really clearly because let's fast forward, to 2030. Let's put on our visionary goggles for a second together, Steve. Give me
Yeah.
your best, boldest prediction. How are the everyday home battery systems in California going to look in 2030? How are we going to use those? How is the grid going to look different?
So yeah, that's great. So I think we'll see a merging of some big players in the battery space that we have no idea about right now. A new battery manufacturer, like a good sales org slash installation company, that isn't, doesn't rhyme with fun. Um, and I think there'll be a lot more, it'll be a lot cheaper. So um, over the next 5 years, there's a lot of developments. Like in the Salton Sea, they're going to start mining for lithium, and then there's that big deposit in northern Nevada that we haven't even touched yet. When those start to come up, I think the battery prices will drop significantly, just like solar did, from 2013 to now. And there's going to be a lot more margin in the deal. But then prices will also shrink, and you'll kind of have this back and forth and things like that, just like solar. Um, and I think there will be and I think there's going to be way more power outages than there is currently. Based off that Department of Energy report, they said by 2030 they expect it to be 800 hours a year on average for the average home. We have a 100 to 150-year-old grid in most places, and so it's gonna break with the amount of AI, and the amount of AI demand that's coming on the grid. We literally need double of what we're using right now, over the next 5 years, and that's not going to change. So I think batteries, there'll be some kind of subscription model. They'll be a lot cheaper. You'll see way more of them. There'll be companies that we haven't even thought of yet, and there'll be way more power outages this will be a lot easier to sell than it even is right now. Um,
I
and
couldn't agree more.
whoever's positioned now to do it will be in a good spot later.
I couldn't agree more. That was such a great overview. And where did the grid start? For those of you wondering, read the book The Grid. It's an amazing book. I read it based upon Danny Pessy. Again, shout out Danny. That I read that book. Shoot, what was that? Maybe in 2020 or 2019. And where the grid started was really in Chicago. For those who don't know, and us who are paying attention, Steve, I don't know how much you are, but in Chicagoland, how much are batteries impacting the grid over there right now? Have you been keeping up on that?
A huge amount. Yeah, so they have a huge state rebate for it, correct? The SREC, and they switched to NEM 3 last year. So that's the extent of what I know about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's programs that I've seen in place in that market right now where companies are doing crazy things to fight for the gold rush of the battery and the value there. I mean, there's
Hmm.
so totally different creative models. They have a time-based buy and sell rate that's much more linked to like second to moment to minute, like very much live in the sense that it's like not even like the 15 or 60-minute intervals like we have in California. Like they'll
Mm.
have real time emergencies on their grid where the price of electricity will just spike in real time up to, I've heard, I think 60 cents, 70 cents, like these really high spikes. And so the battery and the resiliency of the grid, because that's the 150-year-old grid, over there is really where it all got started. That grid is the most unstable. And again, people who are paying attention, it's like, holy smokes, this is this is an exciting time that we're in. So let's do a quick rapid fire close questions, and we'll go ahead and
Yeah.
wrap this up for our audience. So rapid fire question: solar Steve or storage Steve? Which one made more money?
Yeah. So far, Solar Steve, but that'll probably change by the end of this year.
I love it. What's the one battery brand that you would put on your house today?
Tesla,
Solar only or battery only? Which one would you choose if you could only have one?
battery only.
Yep. Biggest mistake solar salespeople make when trying to transition to selling storage?
Um, Thinking it's all about savings. It's not. It's about value.
Biggest lie homeowners are being told about batteries today?
That it costs $30,000 to do.
California battery market in 2030, are batteries overrated or massively underestimated in 2030?
Massively underestimated. There's going to be a huge wave of storage over the next 5 years.
And there you have it. Any final thoughts you want to share, storage Steve? This has been incredibly valuable. Anything else you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm really grateful to have you. I consider you a good influence and good mentor as well, man. I know you've been doing this longer than me, and now I'm the expert on storage, so that's pretty cool, you know. But I still
Yes.
have tons to learn, and I think that's what keeps me going is it's so exciting. And so yeah, I would just say to the audience, everyone here, yeah, if you're interested in doing this, you can definitely hit up Jonathan or me about it. This is the future. It really is. I'm really good at predicting like what's coming next. I just know that from the amount of time and I have a massive amount of evidence of doing that. And this is the transition. This is the pivot that people have been looking for. You don't need to go to insurance, into insurance sales. You don't need to go back to alarms or go into something else. Storage is very similar to solar. It's the compensation similar, the sale is similar, the homeowner is a similar, like it's the same homeowner in a lot of cases, that you're just going back and upselling to. Um, this is it. And I think there's if you start now and we find and we find something that's like a residual, like that's what I'm working on right now, or equity in one of these companies, or just a lot of commission, it's gonna go quick. We probably have like a 2 to 5 year window of doing this before it's the same end curve of solar of like the heyday, which I think you can still sell solar. I mean, it's not like it's gone, but I think you know the the boom and bust cycle, it's busted right now. And So storage isn't. Storage is about to boom. So
I love it.
reach out.
And where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, the Storage Steve, and SolariStorage.com. We just got our website set up, so if you guys want to go check it out, you can reach out to me. It calls my phone number right now. So if you
Steve,
want to
thank
call
you
on that.
so much. I love this podcast. Think that listeners are going to get a ton of value. Obviously, as always, like, comment, subscribe, share. Thank you so much, Steve. I look forward to having you on next time.
Thanks, man. Hey, thanks for having me. Bye.